buddy. Does he want to join?
What buddy?
The one that just came in the room.
Wish I was going back to college.
I know you crushed it.
Go get him, Tiger.
Hey, Brian Timms.
Hi, I'm Chloe. This is Tommy. This is gonna get you on Wi-Fi. It's also got some free student software.
Oh, shit.
Should I leave?
I'm Jeremy.
Brian.
Oh, come on. Let's let him get settled in peace.
Yeah, I have a flash drive that says it's full, but when I open it, it looks empty.
Yeah, that happens if you eject it before emptying the trash.
One more! You know what I want next.
Yo! Zeta Delta's eyes throwing a party.
Hey, who you checking out?
I thought I saw someone I knew.
Oh, it's too much.
I've never done this before. Can we at least talk about it?
It's over and done. Just forget it ever happened.
Hey, you wanted it.
Do you know who this is?
Does he have any mutual followers?
Janelle.
Someone hacked my computer. I'm so sorry.
What taped me having sex?
Hey, Lexi,
Didn't you say something about a boyfriend?
Me?
I'm gonna call my brother.
What's up?
Who was this guy? What happened to him? Should we call the cops? What?
All right, who are you, man?
Oh my god, I know that guy. There he is.
Keep digging and see what happens. What did you get us into?
We saw the webcam recordings.
Jacob! What the?
You sick, lonely webcam freak.
Welcome back to another Frightgown chat. We are actually talking with the screenwriter of one of our films tonight. So I'm pleased to welcome Anthony Del Negro. He is the screenwriter of Exploited. Thanks for taking the time to chat with me.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for watching the film, everyone. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, we kind of saved the best for last because this one is very different from a lot of the other picks that are a little bit quieter, they're a little bit moody, and this movie is not those things. This is like loud, in your face, it's confrontational. People are going to have a reaction to this.
Yes. very, very, risky kind of movie to make. And
Yeah.
we wanted to really kind of dive. We didn't want to make like your typical like slasher where you're just getting picked off one by one.
Right.
We wanted that more like in the backdrop of what was really happening. And then what was really happening was these characters that they're exploring their sexuality.
Yes. Yeah. We will get to the sex in a bit because there is definitely like more than G-rated sex in this movie as well. So let me start with a kind of softball question to set the stage. How did you get into screenwriting? Was it something that you always wanted to do? What was that process like to get you going?
Yeah, so I had the pleasure of being an actor in a couple of horror films. So my producing partner, Shane O'Brien, used to run the network, the Chiller Network.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
The sister of Sci-Fi under the Universal branch. So I worked on a lot of the horror films that he did. And that's kind of where I fell in love with producing and screenwriting. Did one called Deep in the Darkness with Sean Patrick Thomas. That was fun. Dead Souls. There was Animal. There was one called The Boy. Yeah, those were really fun to work on. And that's kind of where I was like, wow, I've always been a fan of horror. So I was like, how do I get some on-set experience? And then writing just kind of came natural to me.
Did you write like as a child, or is this kind of like, no, screenwriting is a different kind of beast?
I did do a lot of creative writing when I was in high school and college. So, but screenwriting is a whole other beast.
Right.
That's what I learned. Like the first few drafts, I was like, oh, because I was kind of writing it like a novel. I'm like, no, everybody knows Save the Cat model, and that's that's kind of what I followed for writing Exploited.
Okay, so speaking about this film particularly, where did the idea come from? You said you wanted to subvert some traditional slasher ideas. It's not just people getting picked off, it's them exploring their sexuality, but there's an interesting cast of characters in this, and I'm curious to know, like, was there some kind of instigating factor or something you wanted to explore?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what exploited my dog is growling. The looks really. A lot of what exploited is kind of based off of my college experience. And
Oh,
kind of
really?
being that kind of doughy-eyed freshman, very innocent. Not Ruby, come on, sweetie. This is Ruby, everyone. This is what's
Nice.
under my desk right now. Yeah, and I wanted to, explore a lot of my friends I kind of grew up with, and of course I asked them if it was okay to. Of course, none of their names were used, but one of my roommates was a webcam performer.
Oh, really? Okay.
Would cam with.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of got into that world of those different kinds of fetishes, and that's kind of where a lot of the fetishes that you see in the movie actually really happened.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah, one of the things that I really enjoyed about the movie is that there's obviously some sort of, violence and subversive, like dangerous elements to that, but there's also a lot of playful comedy. Like there's people with kinks, but I don't feel like the movie is actively shaming them. It's just saying like, look at this broad range of things that turn people on.
That's right, and I really want more than anything for exploited to be sex positive.
Right. Yeah.
Because it should be. And we don't want anybody to die. But, if you enjoy popping balloons or there's so many different fetishes that we explore.
Sure.
There's a few we didn't even include in it, but
if
that is your thing, no judgment. Honestly, everyone should be enjoying themselves out there. So
exactly. Yeah. It definitely feels like we're in a day and age where we shouldn't be shaming people for things that they enjoy, particularly when we have the internet and people can now be truthful to who they actually are.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so you collaborated on this script with a writing partner, Carl Molenberg. What is it like to work on a script with somebody, especially when you're not then going to be the director? Like you're really collaborating with a bunch of different people, but is there ever a concern that the script isn't as much yours anymore?
No, I mean, Carl is incredibly collaborative. I really enjoyed, working with him on it. I came up with the original idea and I kind of pitched it to him. And he's like, "Wow, that sounds, pretty thrilling. Let's go and dive in." And the process with him has just been, fantastic. He had a really good eye for dialogue.
Oh, okay.
I was I had the structure down, and I kind of needed help tweaking dialogue and what characters would sound like, and I think collaborating screenwriting was very beneficial for me. Although my next one that I'm doing, Don't Let the Cat Out, that's truly just
you.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay, that's interesting.
That too. Also some true events.
Better be careful. People might start to get an idea about what you're like.
No one died really in my case, but it led down to that. With anything, with talking to strangers over the internet, you have no idea what you're getting yourself into.
Yes.
And with exploited, I really wanted to explore that voyeurism.
Yeah, and I like that there's different levels of it, right? Like there are some people who are really engaged with it, and then other people it's just like part of the investigation where they're trying to figure out like what's going on, what's on the flash drive, how do I decode this and stuff. So you've got sort of traditional mystery elements, but then you've also got like the seedy underside of the internet.
Yep.
Okay, so walk us through this timeline. Like, how long did it take for you from the initial concept to like writing it down with Carl to then this going into production and getting shot? Because I feel like a lot of people, and I'll include myself in this, don't always have a good idea of like, what does it take to make an indie horror film?
We were off to the races. It was the fastest.
Oh, really?
Had the idea. We approved the treatment, which was like about 15 pages. So we had a 15-page treatment, and then we went right into the screenplay over Christmas of 2018. And that typically for me, because I'm working at a production company right now, and really don't have the time where I'm not like stressed out with other projects to really like sit down and like focus on a script. And usually December is always the month for me to like crank out a script.
Right. Because people kind of take a bit of a breather going into the holidays. Is that it?
Yeah, there's not much shooting. Post-production kind of slows down. It's such a nice time for me to kind of block out all that outside noise and just focus.
And were you able to go to set when they were filming? Like how active were you after you kind of handed in the script and they began casting and doing that stuff.
I was there every day. Yeah,
Really? Okay.
every day.
What is it like to see like the scenarios that you've imagined in your head then play out in front of you?
I mean, it was so surreal.
Yeah.
And on this film, this was right before SAG introduced the intimacy reps. So we
Okay.
did not have an intimacy rep or coordinator on this movie. So, shooting the sexual scenes, the stuff tough for the actors. And I kind of was their, I guess, liaison to making sure they felt comfortable and know that every single actor had a writer and what would be shown
Right.
and how it would be shot. And I wanted to make sure I was there, making sure that we were faithful to those writers.
Okay. So you were definitely like more hands-on than a traditional screenwriter would be.
Yeah. Because Carl and I, we produced the film as well.
Right. Yeah. So you've got hands and feet in multiple pies. What analogy am I aiming for here? This is why I'm not a writer. I'm just a film critic. So
And the campus that we shot at, funny enough, had no idea this was a horror film, very sex scene. I said, oh, it's just, college movie, college kids. And they're like, oh yeah. I was like, yeah. If they had only known. I'm like,
yeah, because I imagine, I mean, you hear things like guerrilla filmmaking back in like the 70s and 80s where they would just grab the camera and shoot on the street and hope that a police officer didn't stop them. But that's not the day and age that we live in anymore, right? Like people are worried about their reputation. They don't want to know, oh, this movie about like sex murders is being filmed on our campus and potentially portraying it negatively, right?
Right, exactly. So that's where the producer side of me came out, making sure that we could get these locations and not get
Yeah. Did they ever contact you? Did they find out, do you think?
No, haven't heard from them. So I was like,
all right. You know what? It's like a good like intimate encounter then. Everybody walked away happy.
You have to give them the script, of course, because they want to know like what's in the script, but definitely gave them a watered down version. So you wouldn't say things like, he thrusts inside of him hard, they sweat, they just say they give each other a hug.
Right. Yeah.
they hug it out. Good smile, so you get the intimacy there, but it's not as explicit.
Right. Yeah. They can pay their money and see the finished version if they really want to know how it plays out.
Exactly.
So you're a writer and a producer working in indie film. What is it like to mount an independent production compared to something like a studio project?
Indie films are very tough
because
they're spec. They're made on spec, and you don't have a buyer for them yet, and you just hope you make a great film, great product that somebody could be interested in buying. And I think that's the risk that you take with indie films. But of course, with indie films, you have a lot more creative control over it versus studio. So my model is I prefer less cooks in the kitchen. And I think I've seen films that are bigger budget tentpoles, and there's like 40 people making a decision about one thing. It's just that would just drive me insane.
Well, and the shooting time is like so much shorter. So you've got to imagine then that, okay, well, if we've got 40 people trying to make a single decision, how does that not put us over budget because suddenly everything's taking so much longer?
Yeah, and that's where I think someone like Jason Blum and Blumhouse, their model is just perfect. I mean, they're on fire. They understand how to shoot something efficiently and on a budget.
Right. So, okay, you don't have to disclose what the budget for Exploited was, but I'm guessing it's independent horror, so it's probably not in like millions of dollars range. You said you're making it on spec, but also the nature of this content could be considered a quote unquote turnoff to some buyers, right? Like people are going to look at this and they're going to say, this is like explicit sexuality, much of it queer. Does that cross your mind into like how you write things or how you prepare for things, like knowing that at the end of the day, you're also trying to make your money back and maybe even make enough to make another film?
It's a good question. For this film, Carl and I we wanted to go for it.
Okay.
We didn't want to hold back. We stuck true to what the story was, and I think over time the movie will make its money back, and we're hopeful with that.
Okay.
Think about indie films too. You have the whole world that you could sell, and I think a lot of films that like this won't necessarily do great domestically, but there's a foreign market for them.
Interesting. Because I feel like a lot of people would look at this and say, oh, well, there's certain countries now you can never sell to because of the nature of the film. But I also imagine there's probably a relatively hungry market where they're saying, well, queer things sell. There's a lot of appetite for this kind of work, and it's moved beyond the festival circuit now, right? Like we've got a lot of streamers who are picking up tons of queer content, and like there's queer only streamers and so on. So
yeah, and I think with I always hate when buyers would say, oh, this is a niche film. Well, yeah, I get it. Just watch it, you know. It's, God, getting people to watch it was just so frustrating. We spent probably 6 months trying to get Netflix to watch it, and
right,
watched it, and they said it wouldn't fit well in their horror space. But
right,
I mean, it's who's watching it, right? Where I always get frustrated and discouraged sometimes, because it's like, okay, if someone isn't open to material like this and they're the ones that are the gatekeepers, it's like, well,
right,
it's not going to get to the right person, you know?
So one interesting component we haven't talked about is your director, who I feel like that's the weird factor when people look into the film. They're like, wait, so the director is one of the actors from the original Scary Movie. And is that a selling feature, or is that just like a happy coincidence? It so happened that John Abrams wanted to come on and direct this movie.
I think it's just a coincidence. Yeah, I mean, of course, I'm a big fan of Scary Movie, and like I loved him in that, and like I love all his films. But I've watched a lot of the films recently that he directed, and he just was his vision for the film and just how he wanted it to look and the characters, and you know, he did such a great job directing the actors. Like those performances were because of him.
I mean, you obviously also have like some big names in supporting roles as well. Were you able to lure them out with the kind of like, ooh, this is a bit of a sensational movie?
Yeah, you know, I think it does attract actors to want to do something that's a little bit different and not so. And then my hat's off to all the actors that are in this, because you know,
well, they are giving it their all. Yeah. Like you can't say that anyone's phoning these performances in.
Yeah, Leah Pipes and Kenzie. I mean, they all just really brought it, which, you know, I appreciate. And they were all such good sports about it too. Everyone was such a team player. So
So we're going to default assume that maybe not everyone has actually watched the movie. We're hoping that they're going to after this, but I can't let you go without asking you about the ending of the movie. So we'll try to discuss this spoiler free as much as possible. But like the ending of this movie is absolutely batshit. And I feel like it's one of the things that really sold me on it, because I was like, there's maybe more endings than The Lord of the Rings, and it doesn't go anywhere I thought it was going to go. So talk to me about this ending.
The ending, God, without plot spoilers. We wanted to again explore that voyeurism and how it can take so many people down. Of course, we want to set it up for the sequel. So.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, I've written, and fingers crossed. Do the second.
Interesting. I hadn't considered that. I mean, obviously there's a sequel potential, but I wasn't sure if that was like a deliberate construction, or if you're just doing like, yeah, we'll do the typical Carrie, like throw it on at the end and sort of leave that door open.
I'm also kind of a fan of movies that make you guess at the end. Like, why did they do that? Like, what's the purpose? Like, I hate when horror movies are like, well, you killed my mom, so I'm gonna have to come out. Like, that's like Scream, right? Like I hate when motives are so spelled out for you, where if something is a little bit more darker and makes you like want to guess, like, why did they do that?
Yeah, I think there's a time and place for like a very like, let's wrap it all up, let's put a nice bow on it and make it satisfying. But then there's also something to be said for having that lack of closure and just being like, ooh, I still have questions. I'm not entirely certain about this.
Exactly.
That's definitely more exploited.
I want to show like of course, like the dangers of technology too. I mean, I've had my webcam hacked before, so it's terrifying. It's terrifying that someone can just come into your computer.
Yeah, the internet is still a dangerous world, even though we were making very alarmist movies about this as far back as like the mid to late 90s, right? But it's evolved in new and exciting directions, but also the capacity that strangers have over our private lives can be very disarming.
One of the actors, Hannah Rose May, who plays Janelle, she was just someone put a tag on her iPhone and was tracking her for like a couple days, and she had not even realized that.
Okay.
It honestly shows you like what a scary world we actually live in.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
be so mindful of your technology and what's tracking, what's not tracking. Just go into your iPhone settings and do yourself and just like check things out.
Yeah.
Give yourself a little checkup to make sure you don't have any followers.
Yeah, that's kind of the takeaway, right? Regardless of how much you like the movie, one thing you should walk away with is like, just be mindful of your privacy settings.
Maybe I'll put a piece of tape over my webcam light.
There we go. All right. Well, I think that about does it for us, but congratulations on the film. And I do hope we get to see a sequel, because if it's just more of this, I would like it.
Sequel is bonkers. If you thought the first one was the sequel turns the first one on its head, and I'll let you know what the sequel story is about soon.
Okay. Looking forward to that.
Very, very delicious.
Okay. Well, thanks again for chatting with me, and let's let people go and explore the world of Exploited.
Enjoy Exploited, everyone.